Testing, testing. We can hear me? Anyone that cannot hear me in the back? Are we having problems? We good? Looks like we're good. All right. Is it my start time? All right. I am long-winded, so I should probably start like yesterday. So, thank you very much. A hand for Ezekiel for putting all this together. I do audio and visual, so I know that no one ever appreciates them, and they only yell at them when it doesn't work. So, you know, no one's been yelling at him means he's been doing a good job. It's like a security guard, you know. You don't need them until you needed them, right? You don't do anything around here. So, today's talk is going to be kind of some fun stories from traveling the world. There's some other quasi-celebrities like the Shrimp King that he'll be in the talk and that kind of stuff because we traveled around with him, right? So, this picture here is actually in China. So this is what you land, when you land in China, you're at the airport, they already have planted community tanks. So that's just, I want to try to show some of the world is way more into aquatics than we are. Like we love it, like we're all here, we're all nerds, but in some of the other parts of the world, everyone's a nerd. You could just be like at the grocery store and you have this many people keeping fish tanks. So, you know, I just want to show some of the scale, and I want to know why our airports don't have this, you know. And they had multiple of them, like every wing, they were everywhere, and I was kind of like, oh man, I'm in China, this is gonna be rad. So China, there's 1 billion people, like might literally be 1 billion at this point, and this is the surface streets to get anywhere, and this is not rush hour, this is just like, oh, I need to get somewhere, but you don't, so you end up going underground to get there through the subway system, and there'll be some crazy stories about that, because fat guy on a subway is its own joke, you know, like it's, they literally have people where it's their job to cram more people onto the subway. Like they literally stand outside and they're like, no, more fit in. And you know, you're just up on someone, and it's pretty uncomfortable when you're the only white guy in the room, so, you know, but everyone was super nice, and we're gonna break a lot of stereotypes today, so, which I enjoy. So, eat is your life. You're going to see lots of English where, you know, they translate it, and you get what it meant, like, oh yeah, you're going to eat, but this is super fitting for me. Eat is my life. So. And we started off, this is at the hotel we stayed at, got some hazelnut snails, apparently, and even though it says $18, this was actually in Hong Kong, so Hong Kong dollars, which is about $4, so not too bad. So, keep that in your mind. While we're in Hong Kong, $18 is about $4. You're going to start seeing some of these fish prices, and you're going to be like, wait a second, they pay you to take that fish almost? And then some of the best fish you're ever going to see in the world. So there I am, the rare picture of me actually not taking a picture, because I'm always behind a camera. My wife, I think, grabbed one picture of me not working, and I posed for it. And what's cool is the density. So start looking at how many fish are just here. From the back, you might think there's just one big fish in there. No, there's 10,000 fish right there. And what's cool is kind of one side over here, that's one store, right? So it'd be like, you guys, you're your own store. Front row, you're another store. You're another store. It's that close, and they're in the alleyways. And so imagine something 10 times as big as this convention, and there's just booth after booth after booth after booth, and it's just insane amounts of every fish or invertebrate or thing you've ever wanted to see is somewhere in mass quantities with unlimited selection. You just have to find it and get back out without dying because you don't know where to go. Like, at certain points, you would get so deep in, and you don't know how to get back out, and you don't have anything to drink, there's nothing to eat, no one speaks your language, and you're going, wait, I remember seeing that crazy goldfish bowl. Was that 2 hours ago or 1 hour ago? Okay, I think we go this way. And so there were definitely times we got lost. We went down some shady back alleys one time, and my wife was seriously afraid. Turns out down the shady back alley is where all the koi farms were, and it was awesome. We had never seen that part before, and because it looked too sketchy, you're like, yeah, you're gonna die going down that way. It was fine, but somehow you just know, no matter where you go in the world, you're like, yep, that is not like that. So I know I don't go down that row. And we had to because they were closing the back streets, they were closing up on us, so we were forced to go through there. And then it was Ultimate Koi Town, which was in its own right cool. So again, you get the variety here of, this is a shop inside, So they put some tanks and that kind of stuff, and it might be, you know, this little front stage area where they'd have tanks and stuff, and this would be like a super high-end store because they actually are inside and they're not out on the street. And then you'd have this store, and that's this gentleman right here, and he's got a little bit of water coming out that they borrowed from the store inside, and he's doing some water changes, and people ask how they can keep all these fish in here. Well, the whole back side of it is like a 1-foot sump. This is filled with more bio rings than you've ever seen. And in America, you'd be like, that's $1,000 in bio rings. Well, in China, that's $12. Like, it's a source, right? And so you're gonna see some pictures of how cheap aquariums are. Like, oh, you can go to Starbucks, or you can get this 29-gallon tank with a light and a filter and all that. Like, it's so cheap because there's no shipping involved at all. They're just made there. And it's kind of cool when you see people, like, they just have a fish tank on their lap and they're coming home on the subway and that kind of stuff. Like, you just don't see that in America, you know. We're all solo, we all do our own thing. We only get together when we're forced to because we came to, you know, Dallas, Texas. But otherwise, get away from me. So another way they sell fish is pre-bagged. And now you might think this is horribly cruel. What you can't really see off of camera here, and I've never really explained really well, is inside the little store, which is right over here off the screen, which is super helpful for everyone. There's like 3 workers, and all they're doing is bagging. They're just nothing but bagging the whole time, and they started bagging 2 hours before the market opens, and there's bagging, and there's someone else, and I kind of had to wait for this perfect time to take this picture, because usually half of you guys would be in front of this wall and just buying. Like, they're just going that fast. So by putting them in a tank, you can't sell fast enough. Imagine if everyone that was at this convention wanted to buy from one booth. That's what they deal with every day because there's that many aquarists. And so that's why there's insane amounts of fish. And yes, people are just gonna go, oh, I'll take these 2 discus, I'll take this, I'll take these African cichlids. And you can see pretty much everything in there. And last time I gave this talk, someone asked me, like, the plants, why do they put the plants in there? A lot of people think it's for the oxygen. It's actually not. It's so that they can hide, you know. You don't have to worry about heat either because it's 7,000 degrees and always pretty much raining because I'm sweating so much. You know, the humidity is insane there. And even the locals are like, you can just tell, they can't say insane in English, but they're like, it's insane today, right? You know, everyone's looking at each other going, oh, geez, oh. You know, it was hot every day we were there, but it was super cool to see it. And I didn't really want to film the locals buying fish so much. Like, I got a few snapshots and stuff like that, but I didn't want to be like, a day in the life, let's follow you and buy fish, you know. So I tried not to, the store owners we asked for every picture we took, and some places wouldn't let us. And there was some really cool scenes we'll never get to show you because there's like illegal saltwater stuff going on and some of the most mind-blowing stuff I'd ever seen. And then I knew I hadn't seen it because it's illegal, but you know. So this picture, again, is going to show you what the market is like. So over here, this is, that picture we just saw would have been over here. That's that little, we'll call it a store, right? It's a wall of fish. And then right here is the next building. Well, someone saw it and was like, you know, there's not a fish store in the alley yet, right? And so the most amazing goldfish and flower horns you will ever see exist in that alleyway. Like, they're this big, the fins are perfect. You've got, oh, I'll take this super red one. Oh, I'll take the calico. I'll take this. I'll take that. And they're like $9. Like, they're literally like $9. And so it's one of my goals to go back and have the permitting to actually select something like this and ship it home with me. And it's hard to believe that, you know, this gentleman probably stays here most of the day, and that's someone in his family, and they got a little table set up, and then anyone can just walk through here and do their shopping, and it's super cool. Like, I can't explain the density well enough, because like here, they would have put 70 times as many booths here. Like, they're just like, people are sitting on the floor, we could have stands there. Like, no, that's not how this works. But it's so cool. And look at the densities of the fish though. Like, the amount of like ranchus there, you know, you're like, oh, but realize they are this big. They are the ones you've seen in the best pictures ever where it's like, oh, that's a 2-hander. And the water quality is insane because they run so much filtration. They're doing water changes, but not nearly as massive as it looks like. They just have more filtration than we've ever had. And I think that's something we can take away from these kinds of systems is, are they overcrowded? Yes, in some people's opinion they are overcrowded, but look at how healthy they can keep them. Imagine if we kept them less crowded and then also that healthy, right? So we can take the best of both these systems, and we know it's now achievable, or at least I know it's achievable. And so it definitely changed the way I stock fish and the way I'm doing things, and realize you kind of feel like, oh, there's a billion fish in there. Yeah, it's gonna be a little murky. Like, no, it shouldn't be. It doesn't have to be. You know, we just kind of, yeah, I've seen that before, a lot of fish, but now I know if, 4,000 different shops can keep theirs pristine and I can't, I'm doing it wrong. So here's another little shop. You got this guy. He hasn't sold a betta in a while, apparently. He's taking a nap, but he's probably been there for 12 hours already. And yes, there's a billion little bettas here. And this slide kind of represents something different. So while they do sell bettas, you notice they have all this fish food in mass quantity. A lot of these little stalls are like, that might be the grandson of the guy that owns the factory making that fish food. And so he will be there to sell it. And a guy like me might wander in and be like, hey, I want to import that into the United States. And so you've got these kind of crazy manufacturer, wholesale / retail, all-in-one 10-foot little square space, and you take a nap, And the weirder part is, so a lot of times you're looking at this picture and you're just like, yeah, that guy's asleep. That guy's still shopping. He's still sleeping. That guy's shopping. Clearly they don't care too much if anything's getting, pickpocketed or anything. It was so laid back that it made it really fun. And what you don't realize is there's probably 150 nanotanks right down there. They just stack inside of each other, and you just be digging in nooks and crannies, seeing more product than you've ever seen. I mean, there's some wholesalers that don't have this much stuff. And it was really fun to look up in the rafters. The product they don't sell that have been around for the 90s. You're like, what is that crazy contraption that never made it to market? So it's pretty fun to dig through some of that stuff, but then trying to explain through customs how to get it home didn't make sense. What's this thing? I actually don't know what this thing is. I'm just importing it from China. So you can't bring the fish foods back because they're not the same standards. A lot of actual work goes into getting foods kind of FDA approved to import and that kind of stuff. So even though you'll find these crazy foods that are made for a very specific fish we've never seen, we don't necessarily get to take them home. So there's my wife and I. We're at Goldfish Street. It's going to the Goldfish Market. I don't remember seeing anything like that in America, but aquascaping has really taken off in China over the last couple of years. And so now all these tanks that are right here, that would be in one of those little front side booths outside a store, and you just buy the tank. They just drain the water and you just take it. And so it's kind of a cool system, and they're very cheap. They're, I want to say not freshwater wise. I'm so busy to saltwater. No, we're talking freshwater. American side, something like that might cost you $30. You get it already planted. The plants there are worth more than $30. You get the rock, you get everything you want. You just take it home, and they sell all the time. So many people have aquariums. This here there's a lot more discus per bag. This is what a Chinese wholesaler looks like, because in the market there's so many fish being sold. You take a left at the toilet, and that's the wholesale district. You go buy those discus, you bring them back, you rebag them into 2 pairs, then you hang them back on the shelf and you sell them. And so you get these crazy electric bikes running up and down both ways, bringing fish between their legs on a backpack. I've got some pretty crazy pictures of that kind of classic 40 boxes tall of fish on the back of a thing that's swaying back and forth, and you're pretty sure someone's going to die. But they do it all the time, and that is one thing that you have to watch out for if you ever go to this market. Is this pathway right here, they will be driving cars down it. That's the only room they leave, because there's stores up to that. They just keep encroaching more and more and more on it. And so at one point I actually got hit by a car, and because I'm filming, right? So you're a big guy, and if the booth is right here, I got to take a step back, and I'm doing this move, and the mirror of a car grabs my backpack and just rips me with it. And luckily, I separated from the car because, and you can look this up, there's kind of a bad problem in China where if someone hits you and, let's say, gives you a disability, they have to pay your wage for the rest of your life, right? So if I make it so you can no longer work, I have to take care of you for the rest of your life. So it's actually easier to just kill you. If they kill you, they have to go to jail for 2 years, and it doesn't put their family into poverty for the rest of their lives. And so I thought it was just kind of a wives' tale, because the person I went with was telling me that. I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's a thing. And then we took a taxi, and they were like, make sure you don't get hit. They will literally kill you. And I was like, all right, now you must have put them up to that. And then I Googled it, and like, that's an actual thing. Like, you can Google and read the articles, and you're like, oh my God, like, that's crazy. But it's a system, you know, you can't really fault the people. It's like, ruin your entire family's life for the rest of your life, or go to jail for 2 years. Like, I think most people would go to jail for 2 years, but if it was like, go to jail for 20 years and maybe not ruin your entire life, you wouldn't be more beneficial to end someone's life. So, kind of a weird system there. And so definitely look both ways 40 times before you walk anywhere. You know, they have 4-lane roads, but somehow there's 8 lanes of cabs. It's crazy. I will never drive there. There's a lot of countries I'll drive in. I will not drive there. It is very hectic and nerve-wracking. Everyone in the car, from America at least, is always grabbing onto stuff because it's, you know, accidents happen and it's very frequent. Yeah, so it's no joke. Again, this guy, he's putting in his time here. He's just on his phone, you know, discus wholesaler. So here's my infamous giant sponge. This right here. So this is a booth, and you can see there's like 3 people in here, and there's a few walkways, and per square footage, not a very big booth. But the government says you need 4 fire extinguishers. So they said, well, we'll put them all right next to each other. You know, don't spread them out. No, just put them all right there. So if there's a fire, we'll know where they are. You know, don't spread these things out. So yeah, there's this funny stuff like that, you know, oh, we're conforming to the law, and yet like, well, we could use a little bit of logic here, maybe, and put one behind the counter, and you know, maybe not right at the door. But this giant sponge filter, I actually was dumb enough to bring this home. So my wife, you know, I'm probably never going to live this down, but so it took a while to figure out how much it costs, because apparently that's not for sale, it's a display. And so a lot of times when you're trying to buy stuff in China, they actually bring out a calculator and they just show you the price in yuan, right? And so they kept thinking I wanted to buy the smaller version on the thing, and I was like, so I keep grabbing it, and they're like, no. You know, they've been doing this thing, I'm like, but you just told me it was the price, I just paid you. And so eventually I found out it was about $30 US, not too bad, like, but I didn't realize the price I was going to pay, and that is getting it back through that market and being the crazy guy with a sponge filter. If you've seen the pictures, it's much bigger than my torso and that type of stuff, and I had to get it onto the subway, and luckily we were very smart and we wanted to go home at rush hour, so. You get to see fun signs like this. Like, doesn't the subway look so fun when you're in China? Look at the people. They're having so much fun in there. You know, and literally like, no, I've been separated. You know, and the one word is yes. Like, is that yes, don't get on? Yes, ask for help? Is that, you know, like, it's kind of a, you know, your own road show there. Like, okay, and you hope you're going in the right direction, and you hope you're not breaking some cardinal rule. And you kind of just stand there with this giant sponge filter, and everyone's looking at you going, oh, it's got a big sponge filter. Yeah, okay, that's a giant fat white guy too. You know? And so you're just totally out of place, but you were just in paradise, right? You just walked around and your feet hurt and you didn't drink anything because there's only one little store that sells a few sodas, and it's on one side of the thing, and if that guy's not there, no one gets a drink. So, you know, it's a little... You know, you bring a water, but you already sweat that water before you even got off the subway. So, you know, it's a little bit crazy. And, you know, conveniently, they don't show the people that are going to jab you in there, get in there. You know, he's supposed to represent, you know, hammer you in there. But it's fun, and it's fun to see these kind of crazy signs, and you really don't know what they need. It could mean, you know, don't get stuck in the subway, it'll kill you. It could be, don't get on there, don't let the person push you on there. I have no idea. So then we get to look at plants. So we did all those fish, and then there's like a whole wing of plants, and they don't put, for the most part, plants in water. They keep them on these benches, I guess. And so you have the people that own the booths in the back, and they're constantly just attaching anubias and all that kind of stuff to wood, and they've got all these reserves. And these are some of the healthiest plants I've ever seen, and they're super cheap, and they're all around. Like, I want to bring them in so bad, but they don't ship very well. You got this, you know, if you want a 4-foot piece of already planted anubias wood for your tank, you're like, yeah, you got to cough up $12, but you can have it. Yeah, you got to bring it back on a subway. You know, it gets weird. Like, it's almost harder to get it home than it is to buy it, especially when you live in America. Check out this picture. So there's me, and you can see their system. They use old water bottles and little spritzers. So it just keeps them wet, and they just keep replacing as people buy it. And they just hand them money, they make a new one, they do another thing. You can see all the potted plants. Well, you guys actually can't see the potted plants. They'd be right down here. But anything you want, they have. And again, this whole room, that's about the right size. Like, not just where we're sitting, like the entire convention room. Like, just keep going, and like there would just be more and more and more and more and more options. Another thing, trying to show some of the scale of it. You know, and everyone's kind of set up the same way. There's those potted plants finally. And you've got different mosses, and you've got anything you could ever want, and then essentially it's free. So there's that too. And then they've got some of the indoor, like if you've made it and you, oh, we own an indoor shop, right? And so they've got nice plants. I think we'd all agree that's a nice red on there. They've got some fairly nice plants. What I wanted to show off in this picture is we think we have to use CO2 injection, LED lighting, all this crazy equipment. Look at how good these plants look, right? And then I'm going to point out they're growing them on T8 bulbs, like the oldest technology, right? And my LED light's not good enough, like, or maybe we're just bad at growing plants. Like there's some tricks being done. You know, they know what they're doing. Right here, they're doing another cool system actually. Right here, it's almost like a wabikusa. It's this little, like, I want to say cocoa fiber disc, and outside of this, because again, like, oh, that sidewalk's not for standing, that's for working. So there's people outside that have like a little like neat knitting needle, and they just like poke 7 holes, and then 7 stem plants, put it in the water, and then they grow into there. And so you're almost buying like a bunch. Instead of buying the bunch like this, it's already spread out. Just drop in your tank, looks awesome. And they're already grown submerged, the way they convert. And so they just go top a plant, root it out, and it's just like a way better thing. And I tried to buy one. This is where I messed up. I wanted to buy one of these pucks. I saw it on the outside. I was like, ooh, I wonder what this thing is. It looked like cocoa fiber, but it's probably crazy secret stuff. And because I only wanted to buy the puck, they wouldn't sell it to me. All the other places, we could have bought it with the plant, because they're like, yeah, people buy plants all the time. No one had ever asked to buy one of the pucks. You know, hindsight being 2020, we could have just removed the plants and brought it home and then figured out what it was. But we didn't want to buy the plants because we didn't want to kill them, because we couldn't have gotten them through customs. So, you know, I should have. I'm going to try next time to get this puck back and see if we can get them, because the system, when you look at the store, it is so cool. It is so good. And I've never seen it in any other part of the world, which you'll see. So then we went and we visited some wholesalers, if you will. Like there's the factories. This is all spider wood, and it's more spider wood. Like they have these giant, like, I guess, airplane hangars full. Like it's massive, and conveniently there's no fire extinguishers here. You know, even though, like, I'm pretty sure my shoes were going to start a fire any minute. They did have some on site, but proportionally it was not nearly the same thing. So, but that's one of the reasons we went there, is we import a lot of this wood, and we wanted to see where it's coming from, make sure it was sustainable, make sure the people were being taken care of. And actually, what was cool at this factory in particular is every day they provide lunch to all their employees. There's on-site apartments that they can live in for free, or they can go live with their family, doesn't matter. Some other things in China, they take a whole month off together as an entire country. You know, so all these things, we all think of child labor and horrible stuff, and I'm sure that goes on in some places, but horrible things go on in America too. There's also really cool things that never make it to America. No one's saying, like, you know, I got to meet these people and they were all happy, they all had lunch together, and it was a good lunch. Like, I ate the same lunch, you know? So it was a good time, and it made me feel a lot better. And people go, well, were they just putting a show on that day? And like, yeah, they might have, but there's no way to know. I've been there a couple of times, it always seemed good. You feel like someone, you can tell when someone's, you know, hating their life or their job. You're just like, that guy's grumpy. I don't speak his language, but that grunt, that's grumpy, you know? But it was cool to see how things were actually being done, and they were working very hard. They're not abnormally hard or anything, but just the work ethic there was really nice. So we're back at the market, because I would go back like the next day. Any chance I got, I would go back to the market if my wife would let me. And this was more like, this was towards the end of the day, and people were shopping, and you just start counting. Like, this would be this little area in front of the screen. You start counting, and there's like, oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 people shopping from just these fish that are already bagged up, and realize that, you know, that's just on such a massive scale. I don't think we got any pictures of scale, because you just couldn't. Like, there was just, everything blocked each other. And so you just have to take my word that you will, I know you can't do it in 2 days. You might be able to do it in 3 or 4 days to see everything that's there, but that's at least 8-hour days of walking. You know, it's a lot. And so I'm still convinced I can go back, and there's tons of stuff I've never seen. I know that's a true statement. But you can see some of the garbage build up over here, and even their garbage is cool at this place. So off to the side, right around the corner, and I remember this guy saw it, right? By the way, don't forget, there's 7 billion blood parrots in that bowl. It's a really big bowl, but there is like 7 billion blood parrots in there. But right around the corner, there was this garbage, and there was just normal magazines, and they're all filled with arowanas and stuff. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And I literally realized I'm digging in the garbage, you know, and I'm like, oh, here I'm up. And then my wife was like, you're digging in the garbage. And I was like, good point, I'm not gonna put that in my backpack, but dang it, where did that come from? Because they just had normal trade magazines. It would be like the Little Nickel, or just like those little newspapers that are for free, except they were filled with tropical fish and arowanas and just cool stuff. So the place is super cool. So then we also went to, in China, I went to SIPS, which is a Chinese International Pet Show. And that's like this scaled up 4 billion times. So of the vendors for aquatics, there was over 4,000 vendors. So that puts it in perspective. But there's also dogs, cats, weasels, all that other stuff. So it's multiple levels. It takes days and days and days, and you can't see it all. There's apps you can search to where you got to go, and you're like, okay, that's a 27-minute walk to get there. Like, it's on another level you can't even imagine. But then there's all this super cool stuff. So this is where the world arowana championships were, flower horns, discus, guppies, crayfish, bettas. And here you've got Heiko Blair. And it's kind of fun to watch Heiko Blair give a talk, and then there's a translator going the whole time, and so there's kind of this lag between. And you see, here's everyone taking pictures, and then me. There I am. You know, I snuck my way in there, but it was fun. So he did a nature tank he brought in. This is all wild stuff he collected from the Amazon, and kind of did that scape. And then what you don't know is there's like turtles back here that are the rarest things in the world. And I wasn't allowed to take pictures of a lot of stuff, of the guards and stuff. So at the arowanas and at the flower horns, there's armed guards because the fish are worth so much that there's potential for them to be stolen. You know, or some are worth millions, right? And so you've got all the best farms in the world competing, and then when you win that, obviously people are going to want to buy your fish. And so we don't want, you know, I say we, but they don't want any sabotaging going on, they don't want any theft going on, and just to see people with guns sitting there, like, this is no joke. Like, pretty sure there's no one with a gun sitting there to make sure you don't look at the flower horn or the shrimp contest too hard, you know? It's no joke there, it's a real serious thing. So, you know, unfortunately, I could take pictures of the fish, and I got a few special passes to get in there, but you know, definitely none of the guards. And what they don't want is they don't want you figuring out where all the guards are positioned, so you can distract one and make some theft on some of these things. So then you get all the cool, at these shows you get all the cool stuff. This is all the Indonesian wood that's being put together to make this stuff, and you can just buy it ready-made without the plants. And that'll be hitting the US market probably within the next, like, some of it's already here, but probably another year before it really comes in. And it's you know, put together with a lot of little twigs, and it looks super cool. You see Oliver not using it a lot right now because he travels to Indonesia and gets it. But it'll, like, watch for the Aquascaping Contest in about a year, and it'll be all the rage. You know, so another cool thing is, at this competition, they invited the top aquascapers from every country in the world, and the government actually paid to fly them out. So that's how big of a culture this is the government paid for it, not like the Aquashella owners. Literally, the government flew in every country to compete, and so then they wanted to make sure it got enough publicity. They paired every aquascaper with their version of a YouTube celebrity, people with millions. They don't know anything about fish, but it would be like the Kardashians and that kind of stuff. Like, look, it's a fish tank. You know, they want to grow that industry in that country, and it's just at a level that I don't think we see. You know, we might see it in football and basketball and baseball and that kind of stuff, but, you know, to take aquatics that serious, it is the lifeblood of a lot of their economy. So, but it was cool to meet people from all around the world, because I had more in common with them, because they didn't speak, you know, Chinese or Mandarin either, and most of us spoke English, so that was kind of cool. So then the food, I do a lot of eating if you couldn't tell. And I get a lot of flack when they're like, you ate at McDonald's? How dare you? Well, believe it or not, most of the rest of the world has way better food than we do because they outlaw antibiotics and all the stuff we put into our American food. So the food quality is actually super high in a lot of these places. And these were like the best, like if you've ever had like orange chicken at a Chinese restaurant, take off the orange part and that chicken is just like the best little chicken nuggets you've ever had. And they're super cheap. And you know what you're buying. You know, you're like, hey, that thing looks like a chicken nugget, because they have lots of cuisine. So even though we're in China, they had like the German burger, and it comes with 2 bratwursts on it and some other crazy stuff you can't identify. And it's really hard. You do a lot of this whole pointing game, and then they're like, this one? No, like, it's really hard to order even at a McDonald's. And the real reason you go to McDonald's is bathrooms aren't prevalent in China. So a lot of times there just isn't one, you know, and so if you buy from a McDonald's, the wife can use the bathroom, you know, so you can eat at a lot of places, sure, but you don't get a bathroom a lot of times. So you'd make scheduled stops of like, okay, yeah, we'll hit McDonald's or a Burger King or something like that, purely on wanting to use the bathroom, not so much on like, oh, I really need a flame broiled burger right now, you just need to use the bathroom. But I did eat some authentic food. This would be delivered to you as I'm negotiating with some vendors and that kind of stuff. And you know, again, you ask them what it is, and they're just eating it, and so you eat it. And you know, there was that's always served me mostly well until the last day of this trip. So we had gone out to a very nice API. Took me out to a very nice dinner at a Italian restaurant. Super good food. I had like veal ravioli, just something crazy expensive. It was just dollar signs. I didn't even have names, just dollar signs, right? So it was good. And then the next place over was a Mexican place, and I was a little sketched out, but I'm like, this Italian place was so good, and that's expensive too. It's probably decent, right? So the next night we go over there and we're paying our own money, and it's hard to order, so we get some chips and salsa because that doesn't come for free. And I ordered a quesadilla, and I think my wife got a quesadilla or something. And so the salsa comes out, right? And the first one, I take a chip and I eat it, and it's literally ketchup. It is just straight up ketchup. Like there's not just like, oh, it's tomato sauce. Like no, legit ketchup is right there. It comes with 3 salsas though, so okay, that's not a good one. I try another one, which is basically just pico de gallo. It's just chopped up onions and tomatoes and that kind of stuff. And then there's option number 3. So I grab a scoop of that, I put it in my mouth, and that's when it was the worst day of my life. It was just straight up ground habanero peppers. So at that point, I'm fighting the urge to throw up. I'm sneezing uncontrollably. I'm sweating. I'm crying. The staff keep coming to ask if I'm okay, and we're trying to explain like that's on fire. I'm taking spoonfuls of sour cream because soda is so expensive. / like just no more soda. Anything, just anything. You know, my wife was seriously like, do we need to go to the hospital? Like it was. I've never had. Like I'm not a guy that eats spicy foods, but it was insane spicy, like body shutting down, you know, like it was that spicy. And so after it like subsided, like 20 minutes later, like my mouth was numb, my tongue was going numb, I was having trouble speaking. That's why my wife's like, do we need to go to the hospital? Like you can't even really talk right now. Like it was that hot, right? So after it kind of calmed down a little bit, and I've had, you know, way too much sour cream, and I don't want to eat any of my dinner because my stomach is just dying, because you could feel it just burning in the stomach. Like it was just burning, everything was burning that there was to burn. I got sweaty armpits, like I was a mess, right? It was bad. So then the person that I went with was from another local store. He dipped his fork in it, and he put it in his mouth, and then he had the same reaction. It literally was that hot. Like, so, and he's dying, and now he's crying, and, you know, and it's just like, oh my God. And then he told me, we saw some of that on his plate, because he got a steak at this Mexican restaurant, right? So we saw some on his plate, and he's like, you know, the guy actually asked me if I was sure if I wanted that. You know, so we already got a warning, but apparently we didn't get the warning on the other one. And I'll say this, don't get super adventurous right before you got to get on a plane, because that hotness has to come back out, and it sucks coming out on a plane. I'm just going to tell you right now, a 13-hour flight home on fire, and not from my mouth. Yeah, bad times, and it lasted for a few days. Even, you know, I'm supposed to like shoot YouTube videos, and I'm like, I literally can't get out of the bathroom. This is not good. But I've never, and I've eaten some crazy stuff on the road. Like I've never, chicken cartilage, all kinds of stuff, and it's never been like physically getting hurt. You know, and I'll eat street vendor food where I'm like, that might be, you know, going rancid, gonna kill you. Like, I got a bulletproof stomach, let's do this. No, that one, So now I'm a little bit more hesitant, and I'm gonna try a lot less, because, you know, a scoop of ketchup was nothing, the other thing was nothing, and so I just got a big old chip. Moderation's key here. So then we spent some time with the Shrimp King. Dennerle brought us out. We went to Germany, we went to Budapest, Vienna, and here we were actually at the Guppy Championships. And that's Joel, I, and him in the car. We drove way too many hours. These are the guppies that I'm pretty sure put me on a watch list with the airport, and I'll tell you why. So I fell in love with these guppies, and these are all males, and the tails only get that big. They did very, very well in the competition, but there was no females. And fish in general are for sale at these competitions. But Chris knew the person that bred them. And so we got them overnighted, because we left the next day, overnighted to us. And I think I only had to pay 50 euros, no, I think it was 100 euros for the fish. And then the shipping, because Europe is actually pretty small, was only 20 euros. I'm like, all right, 120 euros is a bargain, right? And the whole time Chris is assuring me that, no, I take fish and shrimp to the US all the time. I bring them to all the conventions. And I'm like, I don't think it works that way, man. But I let myself get swayed because I really love these fish, right? So we finally, we order them up, and I pay them through PayPal, and my internet's all slow, or driving to the next thing, right? And they were waiting for them because we have to go to the airport, and now we need to be like on the plane within an hour. We're still waiting for them to show up at Chris's house. Meanwhile, Chris is bagging up some shrimp that are like $10,000 because he just photographs them and does all that kind of stuff, and then nothing to do. So he gave them to Joel. Joel was like, I'll take those sweet shrimp. You're dang right I will. Like, those are amazing. So I was, I think I was having breakfast, and I was upstairs with the kids and his wife, and finally, like, the fish come in, they got put in the thing, and we go. And so I put them in a little duffel bag, and we check in, and it turns out in Germany, if you want to check a bag, it's like a 3-day event, apparently. So not only does it cost 90 euros to check one extra bag that's this big, so that sucked, but you have to go to a different level of the airport to do that. So even though you're like, I'd like to check in, they're like, great, we got you checked in, that extra bag, way up over there. And at this point, because the fish landed like an hour before it to be on the plane, we got like 20 minutes at this point. So we gotta like run upstairs, and of course like the escalator's broken like every way. So we're running up there, we finally get through the line, we pay them our $90, or 90 euros, and we get on the plane. We got that running through an airport sweat going on. It's gonna be, you know, it's another like 12-hour flight, Germany to home. So we finally land, and we land in Colorado, right? And so, or maybe it was Atlanta, I can't remember, but we land, and it's like 5 o'clock at night. And my whole thing was, I'm not gonna lie to anyone. And so it asked if I was bringing any live animals. Yes I am, I have tropical fish. And so we get up to the thing, and I hand them the stuff, and they looked at me like, they already knew like the world of hurt that was coming. They're like, hold on, sir, wait here. And they had to like dig to find this special card that was like, you need this card, and you go into that line. And I was like, oh no. So Joel gets to go skate through, right? And I'm in the line, and this line is only for people that hate their own life, apparently, because everyone that works there doesn't want to be there because no one speaks English, because everyone's coming into the country bringing in illegal crap. And they're just finding people left and right. You know, like, oh, you brought food, you brought this, and everyone's trying to communicate, not pay the fine. So do that for 10 hours, and then get to me, where I'm just trying to bring in some live animals. Like, I'm that crazy, and I don't have a permit. And so I'm trying to explain, like, they're just guppies, they're not invasive, they're totally legal, all these things. And I go to get my cell phone, and you get the big, sir, put the phone away, there's no pictures. You know, because you can't be photographed in that area because you're going to be smuggling drugs through and all that. Like, it got real heated, and it's like, oh no. So they finally confiscate my fish. Well, there's one step before that, I guess. There's a reason so I saw my life flash before my eyes. I said, bring out the guppies, and that's fine. The next bag comes a shrimp. And the kiss of death was, Chris, thank you, Chris, had put some moss in for the shrimp to hold on to for the trip. So now I'm smuggling in plants that I didn't declare. And they were not happy about that. Plants are way more dangerous than fish are when you're importing illegally, unintentionally, being honest. So then they really were like, oh no, we're gonna have to have Fish and Wildlife look at this, like you can't have anything. Meanwhile, this process is like an hour and 20 minutes. Joel is on the other side, so he's like in the safe spot. Like he could never step over. Like they would probably just tackle this guy. Like, you know, we're all smuggling drugs in at this point. Dude, 20 minutes this plane leaves. 20 minutes. And I'm like, oh my God. And so they're making me fill out all my information. Like they're just gonna, you know, send me straight to jail. And like there's no speeding that line up. They're, you know, they got all the time in the world to make my life suck. So we finally get through that. And then it's another mad dash to the airplane. So again, fat, sweaty guy on the plane, you know, just out of breath. And of course, it's one of those, you're so late that everyone's looking at you going, that's the guy we're waiting on? That guy, huh? Oh, yeah, uh-huh. So of course, you know, I get into my seat and I kind of, oh geez, and I'm sweating and I'm dying. And so we finally make it back to the US. And I get a call the next day from Fish and Wildlife. And believe it or not, Fish and Wildlife, super chill. Super chill. They're like, wow, okay, yeah, you got some guppies here. Yeah, they're just guppies. If you print out a FedEx label and email it to us, I'll drop it off at FedEx. And I was like, all right, that sounds cool. And so I did, and you just prepay. You don't know how much it's going to cost. Apparently it's $170 to ship from Atlanta to here, overnight FedEx, but I could have been paying a much bigger fine, so I'm okay with it. They finally arrived the next day, everything's alive, and I still have these amazing guppies from the World Championships in my fish room right now into the US. So I'll be getting them out very soon. Yeah. And all my wife can tell me, like, this is why I wouldn't let you bring all these other things back. You know, every time she just thinks about it, because they had longfin neon tetras I was turning down. I couldn't turn these down, these were one of a kind, and I fall in love with them. They're in my fish room, and yeah. So I think Chris gets a pass because he's so good looking. I think that's why he can bring anything he wants. He speaks the language of good looks. You know, I know you've never gotten in trouble. You just walk in, I'm the Shrimp King, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, sir. Yeah. The whole time, all these cool fish, like, don't even worry about it. And I was smart enough, and I just could not pass it up because they were that cool. So then, like, I realized we just took it all the way back to Washington where I live, but right after buying that, still had to drive around. We went to Budapest with the best aquascaping store in the world, Green Aqua. Now it's a lot more famous than it was when we went there, but this is literally a retail store. Like, this is in someone's house, like you can go and buy stuff, and every single aquarium is a work of art. And so I just want to show you some of them because I think they're super cool. And it's this little old place with 3 dudes that are very passionate about aquascaping, the nicest people in the world. They're not even open on weekends. They're like, nah, people come in, people don't really come in on the weekend. Like, okay. So, and all they would do is keep apologizing how bad the tanks were. Because we arrived after hours on a weekend and they weren't ready for the public. And so they were so apologetic that they hadn't trimmed the plant down so it didn't reach the surface. You know, yeah, but that's just a level of attention to detail. They're on another level, unlike any of us. So and they were genuinely sorry. It's not just like, oh yeah, I know. They're like, oh, I'm so sorry. Had we known, had we had a little more heads up, we really would have made this perfect for you. You know, and so if this is their worst looking stuff, you can imagine how good it looks like when it's good for them. So another scape here, you know, real simple. I did wonder, like, you put all this aesthetics into it, and then you have this weird window right here, like, you know. So I was like, huh, you're like so crazy that you miss that obvious glaring problem there. I really like this tank because everything is spiky, with the reds, the greens, everything spiky, moss even. Really fun tank, just play with textures, you know. And again, I'm so sorry it's overgrown. If we had known, we could have made it look better. Yeah, they're on another level. They're just literally on another level. You know, I think there might have been like a little bit of algae in that lily pipe, you know, and they're like, oh, if we had time, we would have cleaned it at lunch. Another little simple tank. This is what I like. They have this so that anyone can do it, kind of the driftwood and some rock and some anubias and some easier plants. And this was to show, like, yes, you can do crazy, insane stuff, but then you can also be a real human being and not a superhero and do this. You know, so I thought it was cool. And they've got just more and more tanks. You know, again, they're like, oh, you know, this should only have been to here. You know, you caught us on the off day. We thought we wouldn't have to trim until tomorrow. You know, because the plants are growing so fast because they're growing them so well. All right, so different trip, entirely different trip. Not even on the same trip. We went to Peru. So here I am in Peru, sitting in there. I learned more about fish keeping in probably 7 days than I have in the last 7 years while seeing the fish in person and just seeing how they live. So I took this picture and I really liked it with all the sun rays coming through, because it's pretty much, this is the essence of collecting in the wild. Like, there's probably a jaguar right there that's going to kill me, or when I step right there into that sinkhole, I'm going to break my leg, and there's no helicopter coming. You had to sign your life away, literally sign your life away of like, most hospitals are 2 to 3 days away. There's so many things that can go wrong. We will do the best we can to not let you die, but there is a legitimate chance of you just dying if you get compound fractures and that stuff, you fall in. And I fell like 4 times on this trip. One was a really steep bank all the way to the bottom. And I can't believe I came out unscathed because, well, we'll get to the story and I'll tell you where the bank I fell down. And you'll be like, oh yeah, that was not good. So down here you've got Felix, who has lived in the jungle his whole life, and he was showing us where everything was. And you have Dean, who you might have seen on the channel. And I'm up here filming for at the moment because I was collecting on the other side of this road. And you know, that's just how it goes. You would kind of pull off, you'd go collect, and you would do this like on the way back. You'd be like, that looked cool, let's just pull over. Sometimes you'd be way in the mountains and doing it, you weren't doing that, but every little thing had amazing fish. Oh yeah, here's where I ate pacu. Remember I said I like to eat food, so we got to try a bunch of stuff. This was fried plantains and pacu. Pacu tastes good. And the thing I learned here was every single day, so this is Felix here, every single day he would get the sausage. And he speaks very good English, right? And he had made us like believe that, oh no, don't worry, I'll eat the sausage. Because a lot of these places, it'd be on the side of the road and they'd have 2 plates of pacu, like 3 plates of sausage, and then like some rice. Like it wasn't like, oh, we have 70 of these. It was like, here's all there is for the day, right? And so even with sodas, you'd be like, okay, I'll trade you, and there's all we can get. And he would always take the sausage, and I figured it out the last day, maybe the day before last day there. I was like, I gotta try this sausage, you're always eating it. Turns out the sausage was the best sausage I've ever had in my life, and he wasn't really doing us a favor at all. He was eating the good stuff. But yes, I did eat some of his pacu and that kind of stuff, and the food was, again, really high quality. They do a lot of starches there, and then kind of one main meat, and you know, we had people taking care of us, and it was a good time. So here, a lot of people think this picture is about this soda that tastes like bubble gum and makes your head want to explode, but it's not. It's actually to show the floor. So the floor in a lot of the Peruvian buildings, this is all wax. Like they don't have wood, they don't have concrete, it's wax. And so every sock that I still have from there has got, like, it's been stained red. You couldn't wear shoes in there. And so part of the problem of not wearing shoes is there's millipedes this big that would just, like, you know, conquer your life, and there's tarantulas, and you're just going, yep, I'm gonna wear the socks because I need that layer of protection, but I can't wear any shoes because you're gonna put rocks. You can just see how much damage it gets, and it's literally just wax. You know, I don't know if red is everywhere or just with these buildings, but yeah, the red wax I just thought was different, and that's what I really enjoy learning about the culture. Like, yeah, I'm there for the fish, but then you collect it all day, you're absolutely exhausted, and you just look down, there's a crazy ass bug, and there's this weird floor going on. You learn to appreciate anything cold, even bubble soda that is like drinking cotton candy. You're just like, hey, it's cold. Like, that's a good thing. So here we are, we're out on a river and we're taking this little skiff boat, right? And so it's probably as long as this thing, a little bit wider, definitely heavier and bigger. And we're on our way in right now. It's probably 11 a.m. or so, and we're on our way in. And we go and we start collecting, and Felix, because he lives in the jungle, is like, hey, you want to see this caiman? And we're like, yeah, we want to see that caiman. And he just grabs it like a dude that lives in the jungle. And then we kind of did all our selfies with it, did all the stuff we got to do as YouTubers. And then what was cool, what I really respect about him, is he really took the time to make sure it got back into its den and everything. Like, he could have just set it down, but no, he like lifted it up and got it in there. Meanwhile, that tail could have sliced him right open. Like, he's used to doing, he was doing a lot of birding and that kind of stuff. Like, he loves fish, but he's kind of an eco-tourist guide. And so he really is used to, like, oh yeah, I gotta show the stupid tourists, and here's an alligator, you know. But we really connected with him because he collected really hard, we collected really hard, and we kind of bonded. And so he wanted to do that stuff for us. Like, let me show you this, instead of, you know, like, let me do the, oh yeah, let me do the token, here's the thing. So I thought that was super cool that he actually cared about it and wanted to make sure it got back safe into its home and didn't just like drop it in the water or something. And he didn't want it to bite us, you know, we would complain, so. So then we actually had to take some pictures of fish, right? So this is a marble hatchet fish. We actually keep this in our aquariums and we caught it. And you can see there's kind of a ruler back there. And this was very hard to take pictures and video because the humidity, again, apparently wherever I travel, is insane. So we kind of had this two-person system. There'd be one person, I think you can see their shoe. That's their shoe. They're standing behind it, and they've got to use their hand to wipe it, and then I got to click the picture within a second because it would just fog back up instantly. So these are the best pictures we could get because humidity was insane. Meanwhile, you know, you've kind of got that salty sweat landing in your eyes and it's burning because it's 1,000,000 degrees and there's water everywhere and there's crazy spiders on you and, you know, so it's that kind of a thing. But I have to show some of the fish we actually caught. Caught this super cool knife fish. That's actually in Dean's fish room right now. You know, people have identified, I don't know off the top of my head, and it almost looks so picturesque with like, oh man, look, you place the catopodies behind it. Like, no, that's just the environment. Like, we just did it right on the bank there, and it just made for cool pictures. Here's a really cool histogramma that we're just pulling out, you know, like, oh, give me that net. Oh my God, what is this thing? You know, it's already got a little fungal infection on it right there. You know, so when we get back, we would treat it and that kind of stuff. This is on the way back from that same trip. It turns out it wanted to rain that day. And so you can see it's this, we're pointing, and I didn't say this part earlier, but over here nearly killed us. So over there was a sandbar, and we had gotten lodged on there on the way in, and it took us 1.5 hours, and we recruited locals to get off that thing. I almost drowned at one point because when we finally got off it was way deeper than I am, and we're you know, everyone's pulling each other onto it because you can't like touch the bottom and bounce up or anything. You just got to get onto this, you know, it's like this log that's this big and there's nothing to hold on to, and you're just grabbing onto people like, I gotta get on, and the motor itself is so rickety and about to explode that like, and we had very little gas. There's like this, everything that you don't do when you're in the wilderness on a trip, we were executing it all perfectly. And, you know, so it's like time is of the essence and all that. So there were definitely, don't go over there. We nearly died and we were getting stuck and those people aren't here to help us. We had to recruit like 7 more people to get this thing unstuck. So the water, and that's the span of like 6 hours. You can see, if we can go up far enough, it'll get clear, but there's so much water going there. I've never been in water that hard, or that rained that hard before. But I still have to take pictures for you guys. And so this picture is these holes. These are legit Pleco Caves. Like, that's where the Plecos actually are in the wild. They're in those holes. So that's why we make Pleco Caves that look like that. So, you know, you can see, you know, if you look at, that's a lot of rain coming down on that water. There's no joke, and luckily I had an iPhone that was waterproof enough. Someone else had an iPhone, and it wasn't as waterproof, and it broke that day. He kept it in his hat. It was under a hat the whole time, but it was raining so hard, it soaked through, and killed the phone even. So, you know, a lot of these things, you prepare as much as you can, you don't know. Like, I brought so much equipment the first day. I was falling in the river, and luckily I didn't break anything, but then it goes down just to my iPhone, because you were going in the water. So this land here goes up really high, and when we were coming down, the rain had started, right? So all of that mud was now liquid mud, and we had to get down it to get back to the boat. That's when I slid, and it was like someone had set up a booby trap because there's like sticks pointed up, like, who would put these sticks like this? It's just nature, right? And somehow I didn't get impaled, and everyone, like, I slid to the bottom, right? And everyone had that absolute look of horror of like, is that guy dead? Like, did this just become that thing? Because it was just like, and then I was like, I'm okay, I think that, you know, because it was a long enough slide, like it was crazy, you know, and no one was filming or anything, like we were all so tired, and everyone else had gone down, and that was the problem, is everyone had kind of loosened it up. Like I was, you know, and what you don't realize is like, yeah, you got a net, and you have a bucket of water. We all know how much you love trekking through the jungle with 80 pounds of water trying to keep fish alive, right? You're sloshing around, you're setting it down and trying to get over the next log and all that. And so, you know, luckily at that point I had already passed the fish down, but we were making several trips up and back to the boat, and I just slid right down, and my foot went between these 2 logs, and I swear it should have snapped, but it didn't. And, you know, so then you just get on the boat and you keep going. You know, you're just like, yeah, that's another day in the jungle. So more food, right? This right here is this guy. I ate this guy, the kakuru. He's a large rodent, and when we first got there, they're telling us like, yeah, day 4 we're gonna have kakuru, and we all go, what's that? And they're like, well, it's kind of like a giant rodent, and we're like, oh, that sounds awesome. And we're at home. This is like one of our big meals, and I felt a lot safer. The first night we got there, they ease you into Peru like. So the first night you get there, like, here's filet mignon. You're like, all right, I can do this. And then what they told us though is that the kakuru is literally more expensive than the filet mignon. And this is all farm raised. They farm raise them over there, and they taste amazingly good. So even though it looks weird, and you've got your starch and you've got your kakuru there, it was actually a good meal. You know, it sounded scary, but you end up trying all these crazy things, and then you kind of got to get your mind past it and go, yeah, but everyone's eating this. It can't be that bad. And then you're like, oh, actually, it was delicious. Like, we don't have kakuru in the United States, but I would eat it again for sure. I mean, I don't know if I'd pay that price. I don't know if I'm paying more than steak price, but I would eat it. And you get these, like, so everything in Peru, basically they're exporting exotic woods to China, and then, you know, illegally. And all those cargo containers go over there, and then they send all the cargo containers with like cheap plastic crap on the way back. So we have like the most ghetto knife and fork that I'm pretty sure, like, you try to cut rice and it would break. Like, it was so bad. But that's all they have over there, and they all have like plastic furniture and that kind of stuff, and the families don't have a whole lot of money. And so I'm going to tell this story that I, you know, haven't told online before, but the person making this for us, we had a cook and a maid, and you know, their minimum wage, or their not yearly, but like monthly wage might be $26, right? And so they took such good care of us. We tipped Felix, and we had the maid, and she, you know, I won't explain it, but maybe I'll explain it. There's no plumbing in Peru, so all the toilet paper has to go in the garbage can. You know, there's things like that going on, and then there's days where you get so sick that there's nothing you can do but take medicine and hope to stop puking. One night I woke up puking in my own bed, and you know, the person thought it was nothing. They cleaned it up the next day, and I had a brand new bed, and I was like, wow, this person like was really taking care of us. And so we all pitched in. We kind of separated all of our Peruvian money and all the English, or not English, but US money we had, and we put it in a pool, and we basically split it up, right? So we decided that she was going to get $100 and Felix would get the rest. I think he got like $200 because he was the one kind of risking his life and all that. And unfortunately, when we got home, we found out that $100 bill we had given her was so much money, she left her husband and kid and fled to Brazil, never to be seen again. So we actually did a horrible thing. You know, we're thinking like, wow, such a nice person, and it really took care of us. And so, like, the company Go Wild Brew is like pretty sad because they had always been using her, but no one had ever tipped her $100 before. And so, like, that level of money, it's hard to, like, you kind of disconnect from it because you just see them as your equal and you're joking with them. They all eat dinner with us, and you don't realize that you have enough money in your wallet right then to change their life forever. That was her one time to get out of Peru and get to Brazil to have a better life. I like to think that they're devising a plan how to get the rest of the family over there. You know, I can't know, but I still feel horrible about that. You know, like trying to do a good thing, like, oh yeah, this $100, it's gonna buy them, like no one had a laptop and that kind of stuff. Like it's gonna be so much to their family, and then zing, you know, so. Yeah, it was sad because it was such a nice woman too. You're just like, you just think like, who can leave their kid? You know, like maybe a husband, but a kid? That was crazy to me. So you get all these majestic scenes, you get crazy butterflies landing on you and that kind of stuff. You got this mountain range where it's just the most beautiful thing you ever see while Dean's peeing because there's no bathrooms. You know, and I told him I'm gonna use this in every talk I ever give. And so I'm staying true to my word, but it's just the scenery was so incredible, and we were on our way to the top of the mountains where like this alpaca village, and you had to pay to use the bathroom. There was one bathroom all the way to the top. It takes 4 hours to get to the top of this thing, and sometimes you gotta pee because you're trying to stay hydrated and you're taking altitude sickness pills, and that day I was taking diarrhea pills, and we're talking literally prescription strength at this point. So you have to get all these crazy shots and prescriptions to take with you before they'll even let you sign the waiver that says it's okay if I die, you know, so it's no joke. All right, so I'm Aquarium Co-op. I'm Cory. Thanks for showing up. I'll take any questions you guys got. We've got a few minutes. I'm sure there's some crazy stuff. Sounds like you had a question. What is my favorite animal besides fish? I really love to rescue chihuahuas. So my first one, so my wife had never had a dog growing up, and I was a dog person, and you know, I basically brought a dog home that was rescued. So Lamont, one of my old employees, he rescued one, and there was another one, they didn't want to take both, and it was a 12-year-old half-blind chihuahua that I brought home, knowing that my wife has the biggest heart in the world, and she was like, well, we can't give it back now. But at the time we were renting and we weren't supposed to have dogs and all these things, and now she's like the biggest dog person in the world, and I am too. I love animals in general, and you know, and they sleep in my bed. I'm not gonna lie, like I love these things. So yeah, I'm into dogs outside of fish. Yeah. Any other questions, or should I race the airport? What do you got? Am I going back to Peru? So tentatively, yes, in August, I want to do the trip where you never get off the boat. So some of the features of this boat, they pump the water from the river through a shaft. When you go to the bathroom, it enters the river. You know, but a lot of the places were like that. Like we went to a restaurant, if you will. It had some bread and some like cheese. But then there was like a bathroom in the back, and it literally was a stream that ran into the Amazon with just a hole over it. And you look down, you're like, yep, that's toilet paper, and that's human feces, and you know, but nature just digests. There's so much nature out there that it just consumes anything. So it's not nearly as bad as you think, but there is a lot of plastic getting into the waterways. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the boat trip because it's a different part of the Amazon. It's a whole different collecting thing. You're using different nets, different people, and it gives me a reason to go back. And I want to go with Dean again, and we're considering, and I don't want everyone to harass me, but we're considering inviting other people. Like, we're going this day, there's 5 other spots, you guys could sign up, and at least you'll know that it's us as the other weirdos and not random other weirdos who don't know, you know, so you can kind of know what you're getting into. Any other questions? What do you got? Yeah, so a place I haven't been that I really want to go to would be Thailand. I want to look at some puffers in the wild. I want to hit up India. I know Chris invited me to go to Jakarta and Singapore. We're going to go Papua New Guinea. We're going to go to Australia. And some of these places, you know, I got to make sure it's okay with my wife. Like one of the places Chris went, you know, he's had arrows shot at him and things like that. So we really got to make sure, like, are we willing to do this? And you know, there's language barriers, and there's just tribes that are still wild, essentially, and you're on their land, and they don't know what you're doing, and, you know, but I do want to film some of this stuff, and I've seen the pictures Chris has captured, and I just want to bring that to the world, and, you know, like, I know I'm willing to potentially get into a bad situation, but my wife, if my wife was opposed to it, I'll say no. She knows I'll be reasonably safe within as much as I can, and we, you know, we're not going there to die, but we're gonna, you know, definitely take all the precautions. And he's working with the government there to get us passes and everything, so we're gonna make it as safe as possible. That being said, you can have all the paperwork in the world, but if you're out of a tribe, you might not adhere to that government. So, you know, but there's too much cool stuff you want to see, and people like Heiko Blair are doing it all the time. It's one of those things like 19 times out of 20 it will be fine, and there's a 1 out of 20 chance it could go horribly wrong. You're not even injuring myself. There's you know, there's cannibals and there's other stuff going on, but we'll do our best. You know, even when we're in Peru, you take a left turn, they'll shoot you with AKs because they're collecting gold and you're a white person. You take the right turn, oh, and I'm collecting histogrammas. Like, but you literally take the wrong turn, you will just die. Like, they will just kill you. Like, you're in the jungle, no one's coming looking for you. And so that stuff's there, but that's why you hire guides that know, don't go down that road, don't go do that. And that's what you're paying the money for when you buy these services. It's like, why is it so expensive? Because they're gonna make sure you don't die. You know, a lot of people don't know that, like, while I was in Peru, Michael Barber worked for the CIA for like 30 years. Like, that's the only guy you want to be making sure you survive when you're out exploring somewhere. You know, he was very good at reading people. He speaks like 7 billion languages. Like, that guy had it on lockdown. And he's part of the boat. I'll be going on with the boat because I trust him, so. All right, what do you got? Last question.
How much costs the Peru trip?
How much is the Peru trip? I believe It's about $1,500 to buy your plane ticket there, depending on where you're flying from. And then it's like $1,400 or $1,500 for a week-long trip. And that includes food and your stay, which, you know, at that point you're on a boat. But the food is kind of amazing because they'll go and get like wild fruit. You'll get like the freshest juices you've ever had, and you'll be eating things like plecostomus and catfish, and all the big fish you catch is part of the dinner each night. So you get a really cool experience that I haven't gotten to get yet. And but both of them are pretty much paying about $4,000 to go to Peru, knowing that you got to get medications and shots that your insurance don't cover. You know, they're just like, no, we don't cover that. Like, that's not a normal thing. So you got to pay for that kind of stuff. But you know, I can pretty much travel everywhere without collecting all these crazy diseases for the next 10 years now. You know, there's a lot of shots and stuff, but you know, now I'm good to go. So I got to go while I can still go. Alrighty, well, thank you. I have to run to an airport. I've talked as late as I could. There'll be more Easy Green for free at the booth, so stop by and get some. We're having someone else break down our booth. If I didn't get to meet you, I'm super sorry, and next time I will take even more time. So, thank you very much.